Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here live at 5 for Monday, February the 15th for Canada. It is Family Day, but I have to say, and happy Family Canada Day, here, happy Family Day in Canada. The idea is what I'm seeing is people are still working and doing, getting things done. But they did spend maybe yesterday with family, did some things yesterday, although it was kind of combined with Valentine's Day. If you celebrate Valentine's Day, I'm not sure in the way the world is moving along, and it's been like this for years, more and more people are seeing the materialistic side of things and changing it up. So whatever holiday it is, or whatever a special occasion, whatever celebration is, so that's really awesome. Well, welcome to Live at 5 if you're new, and if you've been here before, big hugs. And we usually go through the format of speaking to something completely new or different, something interesting, and then go into some of the stuff that's in the news, things I may think are important. They may be around for millennia, but they are of importance, top of mind for me anyway, or somebody kind of brings it to my attention. And then we'll go into some laughs. We're finishing up that calendar, the pun calendar, the jokes calendar, and I think I'm going to finish that up today. Even though there's 5, we finish it up. I like the last one. So we'll go there. So welcome everyone. Feel free to say hello, comment, put down questions. I'm happy to speak to many different things. And that's the fun thing about it, is to simplify things, really. So let's get into something new, and this is the natural calcium world. I have brought this up before, but I'm not sure if I've ever brought it up in the format as something completely different. And this is natural calcium at its best. This is, if you have to think about minerals, first I'm going to say there's organic and then there's inorganic, and maybe there's a third in science, I have no idea. But the idea is inorganic is actually rock, inorganic, and organic is something that's picked up by the and converted. It's usually in plants or usually in animals or those kind of byproducts. So in this case, a very, very healthy, you can look this up yourself, natural source of calcium, which is one of the most abundant minerals in our body according to science and research. So I'm just going to show you this little jar here, and then I'm going to talk to where it is from. And here, I'm just going to get it here. So this is where it's from. Okay, so you have eggshells. Now these, I don't put my eggs in the fridge, and nor do a lot of people elsewhere in the world. As you can see from the China markets, some of the other markets, they don't even put their meat, really, if it's been cured. Salamis, you see them hanging around. They are basically dehydrated in some respects, but then there's other ones. You do have a period of time in which and in some cases, as somebody mentioned yesterday, you can actually take meat and put it, how can I say it, and just, so what I did, I'll explain about the calcium in a minute here, is that meat, you can actually I was marinating a good steaks from PI. It's grass-fed, and it's from PEI, and we had it yesterday, so we had a lovely meal. And this meat I didn't put in the fridge, and so we freak out so much about so many things that I marinated, but I didn't have it soaking in anything, because if you can soak things in certain things, you can't get the air to it, it's fine. But being exposed to the air, I mean, I had it covered, but being exposed or at room temperature helps the breakdown. It helps for it to break down. But one of the things I've learned about marinating meat specifically is actually to, if you've ever seen, oh, I'm not going to know the name of it. It's a pounder. It's like a meat, and it comes like in a block, and it's got not necessarily spikes on it, but it's very bumpy, and you pound the meat, and it helps break up the fibers, so it's much easier to digest, or it breaks it up enough so that it's softer, it's easier to chew, and it tenderizes, if you want to think about that. So marinating and tenderizing is something. And that I'll also leave on the counter rather than put it in the fridge. Cold doesn't allow things to marinate the same way. As you can just imagine, freezer. If you put things in the freezer and then you add a marinade to it, you're going to forget it. I mean, the meat is frozen. So, I mean, I'm giving you an extreme. So with eggs, you can put them in the fridge if you want, or you don't have to. But the idea is, if you buy them in the fridge, if you buy them from the store and they've already been in the fridge, then you have to keep them in the fridge. If they've been washed, which they have been, if they're in the fridge, or if you're buying them at the farmer's market, then you should keep them in the fridge. And I'm going to explain why. Yep, provincial holiday only. Aha! Hi, sis. The idea with the egg, if you wash it, is there is a film on the egg when it comes out. This is a protective protection for, let's say, if there's any pinholes or anything in the egg, then it's a protection for it, so keep it out. But if you wash it, then you easily wash off the film, and they should be put in the fridge. And if you've had them in the fridge, can't put them out of the fridge because they will have condensation on them. Be it the egg is cold, the air is warmer, and you'll get moisture, and if there's certain things, bacteria or whatever, on the eggshell, then that is going to get inside. It's just not going to be healthy, a thing to do. So eggshells, if you are having your eggs in the fridge and they've been washed, you can rinse them off slightly, crack them, use them as you would use the egg inside. Now you can rinse the egg out if you like, just the rest of the egg, the white, whatever's in there, and just put them to the side and let them dry. Usually dry overnight. Don't stack them. Some people crack an egg and then they put one in the other. No, you want to have them exposed to the air and have it dry out. Then when you have it, you can see that it's all dry. Even having the white film inside has a benefit as well. But this egg, when ground up, now if it's not ground up, what they've learned is it doesn't, it's hard. It's really hard, egg shells are. So when people have experimented with trying to put them in the compost pile outside, even mixed with other things and tossing, they just don't break down when they're thrown in there hard, or even slightly broken up. So what in my research that I found is that you have to pulverize them. So I use the dry blade on the Vitamix to pulverize them into a powder. You can see the how can I say it, dust coming off of it when I'm doing it. But then what you would do is just sprinkle this in food. I can put it in a smoothie as well. That's what I do. But you can sprinkle this on any food. You don't have to think about if you're cooking the food or it's afterwards. It doesn't matter. You can sprinkle it in. It's mineral. But there may be other factors in there. I think it's mostly mineral that you may not want to heat. But even just afterwards in your meals, you can just mix them in. So you can just take whatever, a quarter teaspoon into your smoothie, into your food, a few times a day. If you need more calcium, you go into that. We don't want to have too much calcium, because too much calcium will mean that your bones may, be just very overwhelming for your system, and it may not be the same actually with natural calcium as it is with supplement calcium, which is inorganic. When this is organic, from the eggshell is organic, then it's not as hard on the system as it is inorganic, because what the Consumer Reports were saying years ago about calcium is never to take your calcium supplements all at one time, to break it up throughout the day, because they had found that there was calcium built up, and most people aren't familiar with hardening. There's lumps and bumps and certain things that come in, arthritic around certain areas where calcium buildup. A calcium buildup, or even minerals themselves, mineral buildup can happen in the middle of your brain, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, and it can happen in and around joints. So we don't want to have an overabundance. This is where too much is not good. Water, same thing. Too much is not good, not ideal. So we want just enough. And in some ways, if you're eating good food, then all this is a supplement. You know, with the eggshell, just a supplement. So you don't really need much. Just sprinkle a bit, put a pinch in. No different than if you want a little sodium, you put Himalayan salt. Make sure you get your sodium, just a little pinch, and that's what you can kind of do to add. So that will help. But if you've been diagnosed with low calcium, then you can use it therapeutically and look up the numbers, or we can discuss that way. So that's always, that's always good too as well. So let's talk about cancer. So that's something new. Let's talk about cancer here. Root causes of cancer. It's going to be unique on one level, but because cancer, I was just reading something here. Let me read this here. Are we winning the war on cancer? Now, this is going to be tricky because considering this event, it's causing a lot of stress for people. And in a lot of ways, people are not working with, how can I say, there's a lot of fear. So fear is stress at the end of the day. And if they don't get the proper health care, then, certain things can happen actually quite quickly in the way of the stress. So, but here's a stat here. Did you know that it's estimated that over 625,000 Americans will die in 2021 from cancer? It is one of the top 10. And what is cancer? What is cancer? Do we need to have a war on cancer? No, because that would be having a war on your body, on the way your body's communicating to you. So in essence, when they say the so-called war on cancer was officially declared by the U.S. government in 1971, ridiculous. Seriously, absolutely ridiculous. And enthusiastically signed into law by President Richard Nixon, almost immediately the government tossed a gigantic gob of cash, $100 million, into this new project with billions soon to follow. But despite this massive funding, this is quite common in other areas as well. Over the past half-century, this war has become a miserable failure. This is no different than I mentioned the other day about suicide. So intervention, suicide intervention is not necessarily prevention. So this is a summit. I will post the link when I have it, where it's the stats there. People do their research and they find that the intervention, the money, the grants this government's throwing at it, who's ever throwing at it, corporations, pharmaceutical research, is, as they say here, miserable failure. It's not working with nature. I'm going to come back to nature time and time again. What is natural? What is natural? Natural is understanding that cancer is just mutated cells not being removed from the body in a timely fashion. So let me repeat that again. It's mutated cells that are not being removed or eliminated from your body in a timely fashion. So you can imagine if you're under a lot of stress, that vibration would use up a lot of energy, would use up a lot of nutrients at the same time, and would put tension in the body, which would hold elimination in check. Because if you're tight, if we just think about a fist, tight, 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 are you going to be able to get anything in there? No, you're holding on to these mutated cells, these cells that are supposed to be eliminated. We're one big cell generation machine. So one big cell regeneration machine where we're turning over cells all the time. And when we don't do it well enough, and we don't have the energy to do it well enough, and we're holding in positions, then things aren't going with the flow in the body. And these how they show up in the body, these mutated cells, and maybe they're it's a certain area in the body. There are books where, depending on what condition you have, they'll tie it with a particular feeling and emotion. So I'm not going to go in that today, but they'll tie it in there. And so there's, people have been able to determine what systems, what organs get affected by certain feelings and emotions. And I could tie that into the chest or the breast to relationships. And this, I've not going to say proven it without a doubt, but I have asked people when they've had breast cancer about their relationship, since that is one of the top cancers out there. What are the relationships like with their partner and with parents? And it depends on which side of the body. This is some of the research I did, and it's been dead on every time. So at the end of the day, when it comes to cancer being the body trying to survive, thrive actually, the body is communicating to us when there is mutated cells, and when they get into a clump, this is going to make so much sense to you. When they get into a clump, it's called a tumor. I don't like that word as much as I don't like cancer, but these cells that are to be eliminated are to get. Think of it this way. This kind of popped into my head. Think of it this way. If you are miserable, if you are unhappy, if you are angry, let's say, does your face, I'm just going to think of expression here just to give you an idea. Does it look happy? Does it look smiley? Does it look light? Does it look, on the other side, what an angry face looks like? It's got to look, it doesn't look appealing, let's just say. And the cells are picking up on that when we're stressed and we're having those certain feelings and emotions. The body, it's almost like, think of cells being not supported. If you remember Emoto, now I don't know if many of you people have heard of Emoto. What the bleep do we know has a highlight in there. If you haven't watched that program or that show or that documentary, watch it. It's fun. Emoto's in there, but if you have his book, he was able to show the crystals of water. He was able to photograph the crystals of water, and he was able to, when they meditated on water, and then he's been able to film it, if they projected, was feeling, I don't know, I'm just going to say angry. I'm just going to make it up. There's a couple of emotions that he has in his book. Would you see it photographed? Well, let's say any of those negative, ugly emotions, well, they're true to learn about ourselves and what's in ourselves. So let's not push them away in the closet, as they say, or sweep them under the carpet. But the water photograph was ugly, or not symmetrical, or not beautiful as we see it there. And when, let's say, the meditated happiness, then then they photographed the water, the crystallized of the water. So just think of it, they're chilling the water until it gets a crystal, like we would see frozen crystals on a window or something like that. Beautiful. You mean absolutely beautiful and attractive. So think of your body as water, mostly water, as they say. And this is affecting, so what emotion feelings you have, it's affecting the very, your body. So never mind energy, because as they say, if you're smiling or if you're frowning, you're taking less energy when you're smiling than if you're frowning. That's very easy. So there you go. So here's cancer. So the root cause of cancer, I just went over them. They're that simple. You're not chemo deficient. Okay? You're not chemo deficient. That's a poison. Any medical doctor, any cancer oncologist, they will tell you it's a poison to go in and to kill things in your body, and hopefully you will survive to thrive for many, many years. Now, if you let go the idea, and so happy you are alive after you go through chemo, then you can regenerate new healthy cells, and you won't get into the holding of elimination, and everything will go with the flow, and you can see how that would change. But you can do that anytime. Prevention. I know people who have had cancer, and with all the focus that they had was higher vibration, it's probably a simple way to say it, and elimination. That's really it. That's all they did. That's all they did. They got rid of their stuff. So if we need to talk about that, then we need to talk about that. Okay, so you have all of that. Not to think that there is the magic bullet here, or the magic pills here, which people love to think that there are. And if they do, then so be it. Let that placebo kind of effect work for them, and hopefully but there is many research. I absolutely would recommend anybody going through chemo or doing prevention that they have to be 100% comfortable with their choice, and that to do the research to see what it is that they're putting in their body, and to learn that quite often cancer will come back, especially if they haven't made the fundamental changes in their life. Attitude, physical, what are they, mind, body, spirit, all of that comes into play. So that is about the cancer. So what else did I want to talk about here? There was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about for sure. So let's just see what we have here. Oh, this is something I want to read. And some of you might be familiar with Sacha Stone. He is so, it's almost like poetic with his words. You hear that. So I'm not going to say, I'm going to read this whole thing, but I'm just going to kind of, not necessarily soften it, but I'm going to kind of bring it to light with putting the labels to the side, because in some cases it's not all what it's to be. So in parts of the world, they are forcing our brothers and sisters to clad their entire bodies in plastic bin liners with sellotape. Well, here I'm hearing actually that they're saying wear 2 masks as they shuffle from one location to the other, like citizen gimps in the thrall of malevolent dominatrix masquerading as public health, protecting themselves and others from an invisible bug, so invisible that it's never actually been identified or isolated, so invisible that you need to get a moot skull rate test. That's the I like the choice of words, in order to see if you have it, because the symptoms aren't there, nor are the pile of dead bodies in the street, nor is the forensic science, nor is the reality hologram. But don't let that get in the way of Babylonian business model, which seeks a sizable portion of the world population, called, and so this is the population control that it keeps out there, as its global financial system is soft demolitioned into a black hole. So a few things come to mind with this. It's still happening. This event is still happening. People are still very fearful of that there's something out there. When I know I have up here somewhere as a YouTube video where a particular person is actually interviewing somebody in a PCR test lab and going through the limitations, because there is no comparison. Now I'm going to give you an example to go on that. Is if in iridology, there's a particular marking called, let's call it, it's a white ring. Let's just say that. It's a white ring around the iris. Now, you can be born with it. This can be a particular marking that you are inherited. So in iridology, there's certain markings you inherited. Ideally, there's a benchmark. So at some point earlier on, or earlier the better, just as a benchmark to get photographs of the iris, the colored part of the eye, done, so we can see what's happening then. And if we do it younger, and I'm going to say probably under the age of 12, earlier the better, then I can see if there's certain markings that they wouldn't come up until later in life, although some things are coming up earlier for some people than not. But this white ring is one of them. And people can be inherited, and it speaks to the cardiovascular circulation. And so there's a benchmark. With the PCR test, there could be a benchmark. That's all I'm going to say about the thing. Is there some sort of a benchmark that you have? and that if you don't have any symptoms, you may very well be demonstrating, of course, the more cycles you have, demonstrating a multiplication of these dead viruses or certain components that are similar to, but not obviously because they haven't isolated the virus, but they're looking at, maybe it's how can I say it, a theory that it looks like this, DNA or an RNA or the spike proteins or something like that, and they're going through that. But there's much more to that. So let's just say it's a little bit of forensic science. I'll post that video down below. But yeah, we haven't seen the dead bodies in the street. Sure enough, we've seen pictures, but one of the photographs that was shown in Italy about a truck, or even in New York, were movie pictures. And another particular thing that I've heard and read and through the time was many newspapers will use similar pictures. Well, use a picture that maybe was taken on the other coast. Let's say I'm thinking of the beach photograph, where it shows many in California as it was in Florida, same photograph with the same crazy nonsense and saying what was going on, but it wasn't true. But they use these same photographs to put people in fear and to show people what they want you to believe is happening. And this is the age where we can just pass pictures and JPEGs all over the world, use the same thing, have the narrative as spoken, but it not actually really happening. What else has happened here? Yes, the economics. For sure, the economics, small business. They may say that they're opening up businesses here they're kind of scaling in. They make it really seem professional. That's the best way I'd say. Perfectly professional, perfectly scientific as to, well, we got to open up here, and then we're going to wait, another week or two here, and then this and that and whatever. But these number of cases and these deaths. So let me pick up, because there was a chart here. I'm going to look it up here. So we're going to do that. Where is that chart? Deaths. Okay. So this is from our good advocate here, Kennedy, Children's Health Defense.org. I'll put that up as well. 653 deaths, plus 12,044 other injuries reported following COVID injection, I'm going to call it. Latest C.D.C data. So there's data, and anybody can go. So I went on, I downloaded the first month. I don't even think it was a month's worth. Went through it. You could actually read the exact symptoms. Now, this particular reporting system, anybody can do it. And I've talked this before. It doesn't matter if you're in Canada, it doesn't matter if you're in the US. There's going to be a reporting system that if you have any side effects from any medical, any drug, any procedure, anything, you can go on and report it. Don't assume the doctor's going to do it. Don't assume somebody else is doing it. So, of the 653 reported deaths, 602 were from the U.S., and the average age of those who died was 77, and the youngest was 23. The idea that I'm hearing is a number of these things come from the long-term care facilities, and some of them as many as hours later. Maybe there's days later. We're all unique in our system, but so on here, when I put the link, there's going to be the reporting system, and you can follow some of the links here, injections there. So, but there's a table here where it says it's always good to see the percents, but only if you can actually see the actual number and the number of. So, event outcome. Death, 653, that's the count. That's what again, it has to be reported as such, because I can just imagine no different than what Canada wanted to increase it by 50% on unreported, but I don't know how a death goes unreported, to tell you the truth, but I can see how a death would go not reported, as in it was a result of something. So percent, and this must be percent of the injection, I would think. But maybe it's found, it doesn't really say what it's a percent of. Some cases, multiple injections and symptoms. A single case can count for multiple entries in this table. Okay, this is the reason why the total count is greater than 12,697, the number of cases found, and the total percent is greater than 100. Okay, all right, so multiple. All right, a little bit of, you don't necessarily always have all of the data to be able to see how they work it out, but death. So that's 5%, 5.14% of something. I don't know. That must be more of the percents that are being. If I had to figure out that number, sounds like it's more of the cases that are being submitted, because it can't be 5% of the total amount of people that have had their injections or the doses. Permanent disability 200, and that is 1.64%. Office visit 1,600. Emergency room 20. And again, like some of these, because there is a list of these of the event outcome, they might be counted in a multiple of here. Hospitalization 1,300, emergency doctor room 2,700. I'm rounding them down. Recovered 4,700. Now, interesting, it says the recovered 4,700. That might be based on emergency room, emergency doctor, hospitalization, office visit, and you get 4,700, because it's not just dealt on one of those aspects. But birth defect 15. Well, that's an interesting thing about the list here. So this is VAR's data. This is the reporting data. Birth defect. Life-threatening 468. And not serious. So 4,500, let's just say, which is 35% of maybe the reporting case. If I could just do my calculator, I could see that. So the count is 1,600. The percent is 129%. And that's where they say a particular case may be counted multiple times in here, or multiple in the different events. But the idea is, as of February the 10th, about 44 million people in the USA had received one or both doses of the injection. So far, only Pfizer and Moderna injections have been granted emergency use authorization in the US. And experimental, yes. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to also post event by Dr. Vernon. Let me just see where I can find him. Dr. Vernon, where is he? I've got so many things, and I'm just going to go top of mind here. So Dr. Vernon, he's out of the UK, and he actually has, Dr. Vernon Coleman. How many are the injections hurting, I'm going to say, but it's really actually Killing. So how many are there? So it's a short video, but at the end of the day, he's a medical doctor, and he is speaking about that. So you can do that, because I don't want to get too much on this as well. There's a couple of other things here. There's something else I'm going to post here, and this is 20 reasons why mandatory face masks are unsafe, ineffective, and immoral. And I just want to go through a couple of them here. This is interesting here in New York, dentists. So one of them, the top one here, not that they're in any order, is, but this is 9 potential and proven dangerous to, I like the names they use here. This is global research. Muzzling yourself. Yeah, they have to make it crazy. Cavities. So New York dentists are reporting that half their patients are suffering decaying teeth, receding gum lines, and seriously sour breath from wearing masks. We're seeing inflammation in people's gums that have been healthy forever, and cavities in people who have never had them before. And I'm going to say that when there's stress involved here, and like the dentist across the street who's a specialist had said, cracked molars, it's just happening as such that the stress is having people bite down. And it is for breathing that definitely are mouth open, but they do talk about breathing just in and out your nose anyway. But just stress would increase the bacteria, would make your stomach not work effectively, and it would happen that way. So facial deformities, very interesting. Masking children triggers mouth breathing, which been shown to cause long, narrow faces, narrow mouths, high palatal vaults, dental malocclusion, gummy smiles, and many other unattractive facial features, according to the Journal of General Dentistry. So another one here, I might just read them as far as the title, the numbers. So third, Acne Vulgaris would be another one. And I can see how that's moisture. That's no different than wearing your clothes to bed, when you're letting your skin air out, wearing too much clothes. All of this, especially for those who have more oily, teenage, more oily thing, to keep it clean, but not overly clean, because you definitely want to. So increased risk of, I'm just going to say infection, bacterial pneumonia, immune suppressing, germophobia, masquerade an irrational fear of germs and a false sense of protection from disease, leading to an antisocial. Some other ones here. Toxic. Many, if not most, masks and face covering, including cloth, are made with toxic and carcinogenic. Absolutely. I remember, because I did have acne in the sebaceous glands in that part of the body, and I remember the doctor saying, because this was when I'd be about, and I'm sure it was from the mercury fillings, it was after I got the mercury fillings that happened, and I remember my medical doctor telling me, do not wear new clothing. Always make sure that you wash all your clothing, your bedding, anything of this like, wash it. So you can imagine how many people don't wash something. This is the same as the outgassing in your home. Psychologically harmful, yeah, we can see that. 6 proofs of masks do not reduce infection. Insubstantial, I'm just going to read these out, then you can read them. Unreasonable, ineffective, unsanitary, no protection, unproven. I have heard from people saying, I said, do you wash your mask? I've asked, do you wash your mask after you use it? No, they don't. They don't. It's just one more thing they have to do. Unproven. Well, that's a good one. Dutch Minister for Medical Care Tamara van Ark asserted that from a medical perspective, there is no proven effectiveness of masks. After review by the National Institute of Health on July 29, 2020, according to Reuters. So there's some links here. 5 ways forced masking is immoral, reckless, manipulative, fear-mongering, totalitarian, virtual signaling, and so forth. So this is that. I mean, that's quite extensive, and you could probably do a deep dive on most of them there. So let's just see what else we have here. Oh, there's so many videos coming out where they're talking about, oh, here's another one here. I'm going to post this up. Lockdowns are more deadly than COVID-19. A short video by John Carpe to do with Justice Center for your constitutional freedom. So it's so small. But yeah, I mean, yes, so the one with the lab here, Kevin McKernan, PCR test in PCR lab. And that is where it shows why COVID PCR tests are diagnostically useless. So good short video, only 15 minutes. I'm going to put that down below. So let's see what else there is. I think that was it. But at the end of the day, when we're thinking about choices, it's really a trade-off. You're either going to believe you're protecting yourself, but these side effects that could be happening as a result of wearing the mask, which I went down the list of, it's a trade-off. Some feel that they're still protecting even from other things. The lockdown, again, it's a trade-off. The lockdowns for certainly if a number, and this is from several months ago, 200,000 small businesses have closed down in Canada. That was the first several months where they're doing the lockdown. So it's a trade-off. We have better climate, definitely better climate as a result of it. I could see that, less people on the road. It'd be less stressful for those who weren't going to the work and could do work from home. So there's a bunch of trade-offs that come. That was one of the keywords I wanted to use today, is the trade-offs that kind of happen. And then this is where we actually have juggling. Another interesting article here. It's not that, it's not an article, it's actually a YouTube video again. This is RCMP fails in providing access to information according to report. So this is a lady who comes on. That's her thing about getting information, and report the RCMP is failing in terms of its obligation to ensure that Canadians have access to information about its operations and decision making. Interesting. And she mentioned literally dozens of requests that went in, and there's something about a 30-day window that they have to reply by, and when they don't, then it is then it's out, gets thrown out of the system, I guess, and you probably have to re-input it as a request for information. So that's a bit disconcerting there. And then what else do I have here? I know there's some other thing. Yeah, there is multiple things, but the other thing that come to mind was now let's see if I actually have it up here, but I don't. I'll just speak to it. Is the idea that I'm going to try and bring it up here. I don't know if I have it here initially here, but I'm going to try and bring it up while I'm talking about it. Is something that, so again, if you can imagine a certain group of people that want a certain thing, and it's under the guise of the Great Reset, that they are, if it's a big game, you just keep playing. You just keep moving it in that direction. Any game, if this doesn't work or this fails, then you have something else that you bring to the table. You keep going until it works, until you win, right? Until you win. Whether they do win or not is all up to us, basically. I say not. I vote for not. A lot of good stuff going out. But this is the climate change lockdown. So let me see if I can find it. There was actually a great little write-up here. Here it is here. This is from Sylvan Henry, one of his emails here. If you're not on his email and you want to send me your email, either private message me, is probably the easier way. Just say on Sylvan email list or whatever, and give me your email, and I'll get you on it, because there is link, good news stuff, almost daily meetings. They've got these breakout groups now, so if you're a Catholic, they're getting together and supporting each other. Again, it's supporting, it's awareness, it's all of that. So here we go. Tom Harris, Executive Director of the Ottawa-based International Climate Science Coalition, will discuss our climate lockdowns next. Well, we don't want to think about that at all, so just continuously think about freedoms. 19 countries plus 28 EU member states and over 1,800 local governments in 33 countries. Gotta like these numbers. Ugh, 19. It has a significant number. You see it more and more. I do anyway. 33 countries have declared a climate emergency. The natural outcome of this is the government's recent discovery that most people will comply. A lot of people are complying to this. Draconian lockdown orders to handle the supposed COVID, this event emergency, and will be climate lockdowns, gross evasions of our privacy, and the theft of even more of our personal freedoms. So Mariana Mazzucato, professor in the Economics of Innovation, Public Value, University College London, and founding director of the UCL Institute for Innovation Public Purpose, explains what a climate lockdown could entail. Quote, under a climate lockdown, governments would limit private vehicle use, ban consumption of red meat. That's because it's the commercialized stuff. But you gotta, this is similar to the seal hunt in the Inuit. You had the seal hunt, and then you had the Inuit hunts, and they all got lumped together. So be mindful that at times we have this commercializing of certain things, and these commercialized certain things are not necessarily healthy because they're just large and they're just pumping it out. It's not done in the right way. So when I see banning this or you don't eat this, I just think of it as commercial versus natural, organic, all of that stuff, and that it shouldn't be lumped together. Absolutely not. And impose extreme energy saving measures while fossil fuels companies would have to stop drilling. So, with hydrocarbon energy development, our country's largest revenue source, shut down. Yeah, we can understand where revenue's coming to, and it's probably a much bigger conversation than here, but definitely a conversation to have when things are so fragile, I'll say that. Canada will be financially crippled. Millions, I hear they're bankrupt already, millions will lose their jobs. But what is bankrupt? I mean, they make up things, so you can make up anything. The economy and changing that around can be made up. Millions will lose their jobs, and energy prices will soar, leaving many people freezing in the dark. Now, I don't know what it will end up to be, so at the end of the day, when we hear this kind of verbiage, the idea is just be aware. You know, that this climate, you might be hearing about climate, and it has been seeping in for a very long time. Very long time. Never believed in it other than human nature can make the right changes and will need to make the right changes. But this was not being held up. So the very elite corporations that we have in this wonderful world of ours has been making these decisions to do things at large scale. A lot of waste, not natural. And it's these very same corporations that want to control through the Great Reset. Don't know how that works, people, but in essence, zero, how would I say it? Confidence. Zero confidence in the way that's kind of panning out. So, if you think this is a remote dystopian fantasy, think again, because politicians are already discussing it. For example, in December, Member of Parliament Karl Lauterbach of the German Social Democratic Party wrote in Die Welt, "We need measures to deal with climate change that are similar to the restrictions on personal freedoms imposed to combat the pandemic." Oh man. Of course, we will be told that they are simply follow the science, but just as in the event here, panic, the only science that will be following is the science that supports their totalitarian inclinations, and we need to get ready to fight back. Now, need to get ready to fight back, you know, that kind of language, as I've spoken about, we really need to imagine what we want. How this all unfolds may be larger than any of us, and but what is one of our powers? One of our personal powers is the ability to imagine, the ability to raise our vibration, the ability to see things for what we want to, and to make choice. Purchasing power is real. It's so real. So supporting small farmers is ideal. Supporting the organic or the natural, even if you don't quite 100% believe in it, but at the end of the day, buying from the small businesses, you know, small businesses. So what is it? I think it's True Local. Yeah, I'll mention them. Great guys. And it's TRU and then capital LOCAL. They work with a number of farmers, a number of small businesses across Canada, from, you know, salmon, you know, wild caught salmon, West Coast, to all the local farmers, and working with that they can do. So awesome. True Local. Look them up. And the idea here is that's the kind of thing we need to do. We need to say, no, we're not going to, you know, we're not going to accept this, okay? We just don't want. So anywhere you can support the groups, anything that we have to do to be able to do support MPs, MPPs, any of that to get connected. So that's enough about that. That's enough about the news. How crazy, but we need to be aware. Most and foremost was aware, and to understand our power. And little lovely doggy. Okay, Shadow, no more barking. I probably wake him up just with my tapping sometimes. No more barking. Anyway, let's go into some jokes here. These are the last of the calendar. I'm going to see if there's any comments or anything here. So here we go. Let's go into some laughs. So we want to be at peace, however that is. So the things that make you happy, the distractions. This is families for Canada, but family and tuning into family and friends at any time with anybody is going to make your lighter. So to reach out, to think of this as a one big game, but we're going to outsmart them. Anyway, think no fear, because fear itself is, that's the only thing to fear. So that's just a made-up word to have people get into a place of, you got to hate something, you got to fear something, you got to be against something. And we want to be for the things that we want. All right, so here we go. And I'm not sure how this one works here. People say I'm condescending, and that means I talk down to people. Whatever that one's about. Sometimes I need to read these ahead of time. We talk down to people. Okay, now I'm not even going to read that one either. There's some better ones here or not. Oh, why can't you run in a camp? Why can't you run in a camp? It has to be ran because it's past tense. It has to be ran because it's past tense. There you go. What's another name for Santa's elves? Subordinate clauses. Yeah, some of these kind of have a little crazy, subordinate. Makes you think that you're beneath. Okay, I told my friend, this is the very last one, December 31st of our lovely pun joke calendar that I've been reading, either 3 at a time. I told my friend 10 jokes to make him laugh. Sadly, no pun in 10 did. With the number 10. No pun in 10 did. I told my friend 10 jokes to make him laugh. Sadly, no pun in 10 did. There's fun. So I'll post some of those up, a few of them up. And then we're just going to have to pull out my joke books. We're just going to have to pull out some of the old puns from way back when. That I have them documented. I haven't documented this from Facebook, but we'll make it work. So I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful evening. And if you're enjoying a wonderful family day, enjoy the rest of it. And try to see how you work with your own calcium making. If you have eggs, try that out. Let me know how it goes. Otherwise, I will continue to put the links below. You want to get caught up. You want to even go back in some of them. Look, because that's where I'm putting most of the links rather than having several or a dozen different posts regularly throughout the week. This will be easier. So, live at 5, all things healthy. Good evening. Have a good evening. Take care. Be calm.